Galactic warning: humans don't bargain with terrorists. The medical bay at Earth Defense Force headquarters was quiet despite being filled with people. The rescued hostages from the Horizon's Promise sat or lay on examination beds while doctors checked them over. Most had minor injuries, bruises, and cuts from their rough treatment by the Krillians. A few had more serious wounds from the firefight during the rescue, but everyone was alive. All 38 had made it home. Captain Minho Kang sat on one of the beds, refusing treatment until all of his crew had been seen first. Lieutenant Jisoo Park had a bandage on her arm, where a piece of shrapnel had grazed her during the extraction. Engineer Hyun Kim was being treated for burns on his hands from the electrical work he had done to restore the ship's weapons. Medical Officer Suman Lee, despite being a hostage herself, was helping the other doctors treat the wounded. Admiral Young-Soo Choi entered the medical bay and walked directly to Minho. The captain tried to stand at attention, but Choi waved him back down. "At ease, Captain. You've earned some rest." "Thank you for not abandoning us, sir," Minho said quietly. "We don't leave our people behind," Choi replied. "But I need you and your senior officers in debriefing in 2 hours. The Galactic Council is demanding answers, and I want to make sure our story is straight." "Our story is simple, sir. Ghost Protocol saved us. They were efficient, professional, and deadly. The Krillians never had a chance," Choi nodded. "Good, rest up. We'll talk soon." The Admiral left the medical bay and walked through the corridors of the headquarters. Personnel saluted him as he passed, their faces showing relief and pride. The mission had succeeded against difficult odds, but Choi knew the real battle was just beginning. The rescue was only the first step. Now came the political fallout. In his office, he found Commander Daeun Song waiting with a pile of reports and messages. Her face was troubled. "Sir, the Galactic Council is in emergency session. 17 member species have filed formal protests against Earth's actions. They're calling the destruction of the Krillian fleet excessive force and a violation of established protocols for hostage situations." "Let me guess," Choi said, sitting behind his desk. "The same species that have been paying ransoms for years are upset that we didn't do the same." "Exactly, sir. The Palaxian Cooperative is leading the protest. They're saying we committed mass murder and that we should have attempted diplomatic resolution first." Choi pulled up the Council's transmission request. "Connect me to the full Council session. Let's get this over with." The holographic display activated, showing hundreds of alien representatives from across known space. The chamber fell silent as Admiral Choi's image appeared before them. The Palaxian ambassador, a tall being with green skin and multiple arms, spoke first. "Admiral Choi, Earth stands accused of excessive military force and disregard for diplomatic norms. You destroyed an entire fleet and killed thousands of individuals without attempting any negotiation whatsoever. This is not how civilized species conduct themselves." Choi looked at the ambassador with cold eyes. "Ambassador, with respect, your species has paid ransoms to pirates 47 times in the last decade. How many of your citizens have been taken hostage during that same period?" The Palaxian's skin darkened slightly, a sign of embarrassment in their species. "That's not relevant to this discussion." "It's completely relevant," Choi said. "Your 47 ransom payments have led to 312 additional kidnappings of Palaxian citizens. Every time you pay, you teach criminals that taking your people is profitable. You've created an industry out of your own suffering." Another ambassador, this one from the Zenthari Republic, spoke up. "Admiral, surely you understand that saving lives must be the priority. Your policy of no negotiation puts your own people at greater risk. Does it?" Choi pulled up data and displayed it for the entire council. 3 months ago, the Zenthari Republic paid a ransom for 12 hostages. How many Zenthari citizens have been kidnapped since then? The Zenthari ambassador was silent. "The answer is 143, Choi continued. "Because you taught the pirates that Zenthari lives have a price. How many of those 143 have been returned safely after subsequent ransom payments?" 70, the Zenthari admitted quietly. "Which means 73 are dead or still in captivity. And the kidnappings continue every week because the cycle never ends once you feed it." Choi stood up, his image looming over the council chamber. "Earth learned this lesson thousands of years ago on our own world. Every time we negotiated with terrorists, we encouraged more terrorism. The only way to stop it was to make terrorism unprofitable and fatal." The Palaxian ambassadors' voices rose. "You speak of profit, but what about mercy? What about the value of life?" "I value life more than anyone in this chamber," Choi said, his voice hard. That's exactly why I will not create a marketplace where human lives are bought and sold. That's why I will not teach criminals that taking a human hostage might earn them wealth and weapons. Every life we might save today by paying ransoms would be outweighed by the hundreds who would be taken tomorrow. A new voice entered the discussion. The Thalaxian ambassador, a species known for their warrior culture, spoke with what sounded like approval. The humans have shown strength where we have shown weakness. Perhaps their approach deserves more consideration than condemnation. Their approach is barbaric, the Thalaxian insisted. And yet effective, the Thalaxian countered. Tell me, how many human vessels have been attacked by pirates in the 3 years since Earth joined the Council? There was silence as representatives checked their data. Finally, someone answered. 7 incidents total. And how many Thalaxian vessels in that same time frame? 213, came the reluctant response. The Thalaxian ambassador turned to address the full council. The humans have been members of this council for barely 3 years, yet they already have the lowest rate of pirate attacks of any species. Why? Because criminals know that humans do not negotiate. They know that attacking a human vessel means death. It's simple mathematics. The humans have made themselves unprofitable targets. Choi nodded to the Thalaxian in acknowledgement, then addressed the council again. We're not asking any of you to adopt our policy. Every species must choose their own path, but do not condemn us for refusing to participate in a system that perpetuates the very crimes we're trying to stop. We will defend our people with overwhelming force. We will never pay for their freedom because freedom is not for sale. And we will never stop hunting those who take what is ours. The Thalaxian ambassador was shaking with anger now. This is unacceptable. Earth must face consequences for this massacre. What consequences? Choi asked calmly. Will you impose sanctions? Will you cut diplomatic ties? Go ahead. Earth will survive without your approval. What we won't do is compromise on this principle. Before the Thalaxian could respond, another transmission interrupted the council session. It was labeled as urgent and coming from the Outer Rim territories. The council president, a neutral species known for their fair mediation, allowed the transmission through. A ragged-looking alien appeared on the display, his image flickering from a weak signal. Council, this is Captain Vexar of the Merchant Guild. I'm transmitting from Escape Pod 73. We were attacked by the Crimson Fang pirates 3 days ago. They took our entire crew hostage and demanded ransom from our government. Captain Vexar, this is not an appropriate time, the council president began, but the captain kept talking. 2 hours ago, the pirates released us. All of us. They didn't wait for ransom. They just let us go and fled the system. Do you know why? The captain's face showed a mixture of relief and disbelief. Because they heard what the humans did to the Krillians, the pirate leader said, and I quote, I'm not dying for a handful of credits when the humans have made it clear they'll burn us all. They're afraid. For the first time in decades, the pirates are afraid. The council chamber erupted in conversation. Admiral Choi remained silent, letting the implications sink in. The message was clear. The destruction of the Krillian fleet hadn't just saved 38 human lives. It had already begun saving others. After several minutes, the council president called for order. This council will take the matter of Earth's actions under advisement. For now, this session is adjourned. The holographic displays winked out one by one. Choi closed his own connection and sat back in his chair. Town entered the office with a slight smile on her face. That could have gone worse, sir. It could have, Choi agreed. But it's not over. The Thalaxians and others will keep pushing for sanctions or some kind of punishment. They see us as dangerous because we refuse to play by rules that don't work. Will it be worth it? The political pressure, the isolation? Choi thought about the 38 rescued hostages recovering in the medical bay. He thought about Captain Vexar and his crew, released because pirates had learned to fear humanity. He thought about all the future hostages who would never be taken because criminals would choose easier targets. Yes, he said finally, it will be worth it. In 5 years, when pirate attacks on human vessels have dropped to nearly zero, it will be worth it. When other species start adopting similar policies because they see the results, it will be worth it. Galactic warning: humans don't bargain with terrorists. The Ghost Protocol ships moved through space like shadows, invisible to every sensor that might detect them. The void phase technology coating their hulls bent light and energy around them, making them effectively invisible to conventional detection systems. Inside the lead ship, Captain Jiho Ryu watched the countdown timer tick away. They had been traveling for 36 hours straight, pushing their engines to the limit to reach the Krillian fleet position before the execution deadline. Approaching target zone in 10 minutes, his pilot reported. Still no signs of detection. Jiho studied the tactical display. The Krillian fleet had positioned itself in a debris field left over from some ancient battle. Broken ships and asteroid fragments drifted everywhere, providing cover but also making navigation treacherous. The Horizon's Promise sat in the center like a prize, surrounded by 8 larger capital ships and dozens of smaller raiders. Yuna, are you into their communication network yet? Jiho asked. Specialist Yuna Choi looked up from her console, her fingers still dancing across holographic keys. Almost there, sir. Their encryption is primitive. I should have full access in 3 minutes. Good. As soon as you're in, start feeding them false sensor data. Make them think a large convoy is approaching from the opposite direction. Something big enough to be a ransom delivery but not threatening enough to make them scatter. Understood, sir. Jiho switched to the squadron-wide channel. All units, this is actual. We insert in 8 minutes. Remember your sectors. Team 1 takes the cargo bay where the hostages are held. Team 2 secures the bridge and eliminates the leadership. Teams 3 and 4 clear the corridors and prevent reinforcements. Seojin, your demo team plants charges on every capital ship reactor core. We have 18 minutes from first breach to extraction. If anyone isn't at the rendezvous point when that clock hits 0, we leave without you. There was a chorus of acknowledgments. These operators had trained together for years. They knew each other's moves like they knew their own heartbeats. Aboard the Horizon's Promise, Captain Minho Kang felt the ship shudder slightly. It was so subtle that the Krillian guards didn't notice, but Minho had commanded vessels for 15 years. He knew every sound and vibration a ship could make. That wasn't a normal fluctuation. Something had just docked with the hull, and the pirate's sensors hadn't detected it. He caught Jisu's eye across the cargo bay and gave the smallest nod. She understood immediately and began shifting her position slightly, ready to move when the moment came. Yoon was already near one of the power conduits, positioned exactly where Minho had hoped he would be. The lights flickered again, and this time they went out completely for 3 full seconds. When they came back on, the Krillian guards were alert and confused, talking rapidly into their communication devices. Warlord Vexthor's voice boomed through the ship's intercom, angry and demanding status reports. Then the shooting started. The explosions came from 4 different locations simultaneously. The cargo bay doors blew inward with a blast of shaped charges that precisely killed the guards stationed there, while leaving the hostages untouched. Figures in black armor poured through the smoke, moving with inhuman speed and precision. Their weapons made almost no sound, just soft hisses as they fired specialized ammunition that punched through Krillian armor like paper. Friendlies, stay down, one of the armored figures shouted in accented Korean. We're extracting you now. The hostages pressed themselves against the floor as the Ghost Protocol operators swept through the cargo bay. In less than 30 seconds, every guard was dead. The leader of the team, a woman with cold eyes visible through her helmet visor, knelt beside Minho. Captain Kang, I'm Specialist Yuna Choi, Ghost Protocol. Can you walk? Yes, Minho said as she cut his magnetic cuffs with a small laser tool. My crew is combat capable. Give us weapons and we'll help. Yuna handed him a compact plasma pistol. Stick close to us and shoot anything that isn't human. We're on a tight schedule. Throughout the ship, similar scenes were playing out. Jiho's team had breached the bridge and caught Warlord Vexthor in the middle of organizing a defense. The Warlord was fast and strong, grabbing one operator and throwing him across the room hard enough to crack the man's armor. But he wasn't fast enough. Jiho put 3 rounds into Vexthor's chest, dropping him to his knees. The Warlord looked up at Jiho, blood bubbling from his mouth. You're supposed to negotiate. All species negotiate. That's how it works. We're human, Jiho said coldly. We don't work like everyone else. He put the 4th round between Vexthor's eyes. In the reactor room of the largest Krillian capital ship, Seojin Park and his demolitions team worked with practiced efficiency. They placed charges on every critical system, programming them to detonate simultaneously. The charges were small but powerful, designed to cause cascading failures that would rip the ships apart from the inside. Charges set, Seojin reported over the comm. Timer is synced to extraction schedule. These boats are going to make a pretty fireworks show. A group of Krillian warriors burst into the reactor room, firing wildly. Seojin's team took cover behind the massive engine components and returned fire. The battle was brief and brutal. Two of Seojin's operators were hit, their armor smoking from energy weapon impacts, but both were still mobile. Every Krillian went down and stayed down. Team 4, this is demo. We're hit but operational. Charges are live. Heading to extraction point now. Back in the cargo bay, the freed hostages were being moved toward the docking point where the Ghost Protocol ships waited. Medical Officer Suman Lee helped carry one of the injured crew members while still keeping her head down as energy bolts flew overhead. Ambassador Tae Woo-han moved with surprising agility for a man his age, staying close to Jisoo as she provided covering fire for the evacuation. Engineer Hyun Kim had detached from the group and was working frantically at a control panel. Minho fought his way over to him. "Hyun, what are you doing?" "We need to go." "1 minute, Captain." Hyun shouted over the noise of battle. "I can restore power to our ship's weapon systems. If we bring the Promise's guns online, we can provide covering fire for the extraction." Minho made a split-second decision. "Do it. 30 seconds, then we move whether it works or not." Hyun's fingers flew across the panel. Sparks shot from damaged circuits as he rerouted power flows and bypassed the Krillian lockouts. With 15 seconds to spare, the Horizon's Promise's defensive turrets hummed to life. The automated systems immediately identified the Krillian raiders as hostile and began firing, shredding 2 smaller ships that had been moving to intercept the Ghost Protocol vessels. "Got it," Hyun yelled triumphantly. "Let's go." They ran together toward the extraction point. All around them, the corridors were filled with smoke and the smell of burned metal. Dead Krillians lay everywhere, evidence of the Ghost Protocol's deadly efficiency. The extraction point was a scene of organized chaos as operators helped hostages into the waiting stealth ships, while maintaining defensive positions. Jiho stood at the entrance, counting heads as people boarded. His internal clock was screaming at him. They had 2 minutes left before the charges would detonate. Move, move, move. Everyone on board now. The last hostage cleared the threshold. Jiho took one final look at the carnage his team had created, then sealed the airlock behind him. "All teams, this is actual. We are clear and departing. Detonation in 90 seconds. The Ghost Protocol ships disengaged from the Horizon's Promise and accelerated away from the Krillian fleet at maximum speed. Behind them, the timer continued its countdown. Inside the ships, the rescued hostages sat in stunned silence, barely believing they were alive and free. Seojin watched his timer hit 0 and smiled. Firing charges now. The Krillian capital ships exploded simultaneously, their reactor cores going critical in massive bursts of light and energy. The blast wave caught the smaller raiders and tore them apart like toys. In less than 10 seconds, the entire fleet was reduced to expanding clouds of debris and superheated plasma. From the bridge of his stealth ship, Jiho watched the destruction and allowed himself a small smile of satisfaction. Mission accomplished. Setting course for Earth. Someone get these people some hot food and medical attention. As the Ghost Protocol ships jumped into hyperspace, the last thing their sensors detected was the few Krillian escape pods that had managed to launch. Those survivors would spread the word to every pirate haven in the galaxy. They would tell the story of how humanity had come for its people with overwhelming force and zero mercy. The lesson was being taught. Now the galaxy would have to learn it. Galactic warning. Humans don't bargain with terrorists. The cargo bay of the Horizon's Promise had become a prison. The 38 hostages sat in small groups, their hands bound with magnetic cuffs that hummed with energy. Krillian guards stood at every entrance, their weapons trained on the humans at all times. The air was cold and thin, rationed by the pirates to keep the captives weak and compliant. Captain Minho Kang sat against the wall, his eyes constantly moving and observing. Every 2 hours, the guards rotated. Every 4 hours, they brought water but no food. The pirates wanted their hostages alive but miserable. It was a calculated cruelty designed to make Earth desperate to pay the ransom quickly. Lieutenant Jisoo Park sat next to him, pretending to sleep, but actually counting heartbeats to track time. Her training had prepared her for situations like this. She knew that panic was the real enemy now, not the guards with their guns. Engineer Hyun Kim had been moved to a different section of the bay, but she could see him occasionally glancing at the overhead power conduits. He was doing exactly what Minho had asked, looking for weaknesses in the ship's systems. Medical officer Sumin Lee moved among the hostages, checking on their condition despite her own bound hands. One of the younger crew members, a communications technician named Bora, was breathing too quickly and showing signs of panic. Sumin knelt beside her and spoke in a soft, steady voice. "Look at me, Bora, just look at my eyes and breathe with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. We're going to be okay." One of the Krillian guards noticed and moved closer, raising his weapon. "Stop talking." "No communication." Sumin looked up at him calmly. "She's having a medical emergency. If she dies before your deadline, your warlord will be angry. Let me help her." The guard hesitated, then stepped back slightly. He didn't lower his weapon, but he didn't stop Sumin either. She continued calming Bora down, and slowly the young woman's breathing returned to normal. Ambassador Tae-Woo Han watched this exchange with quiet pride. These were Earth's people, showing courage and discipline even when their lives hung by a thread. He thought about his daughter Nari back on Earth, probably terrified and begging the government to pay whatever price necessary to bring him home. He hoped she would understand that some things mattered more than individual lives, even his own. Back on Earth, that same daughter stood in Admiral Young-Soo Choi's office, her face red from crying and shouting. "You're murdering my father. You're murdering all of them. Just give the pirates what they want." Admiral Choi stood behind his desk, his expression carved from stone. "Miss Han, I understand your pain, but if we pay this ransom, we tell every pirate and terrorist in the galaxy that human lives have a price. Next month, there will be 10 more kidnappings. Next year, 100. How many fathers, daughters, and sons will die because we taught criminals that Earth can be extorted? I don't care about next month or next year." Nari screamed. "I care about my father right now, today. You have the resources to pay."
"You're choosing to let them die."
Commander Daeun Song, standing beside the Admiral, spoke up. "We're not choosing death. We're choosing to rescue them." Nari turned on her. "Rescue? They're surrounded by pirates in deep space. There's no way to reach them in time. You know this is impossible. You're just using fancy words to avoid admitting you're sacrificing them for your precious policy." Admiral Choi walked around his desk and stood before the grieving woman. When he spoke, his voice was gentler but no less firm. "Captain Jiho Ryu is preparing a rescue operation right now. It's dangerous and the odds are not good, but we have a chance and we will take it. If we fail, those deaths will be on my conscience forever. But if we succeed, we will have saved not just your father but countless future victims who won't be taken because criminals will know that humans cannot be ransomed." Nari stared at him with tears streaming down her face. "And if you fail? If my father dies because you refuse to even try negotiating, then I will come to his funeral," Choi said quietly, "and I will tell you that his death meant something, that it saved lives, and I will understand if you hate me for the rest of your days." Nari left the office without another word, her sobs echoing down the hallway. Commander Daeun waited until she was gone, then turned to the Admiral. "Sir, permission to speak freely." "Granted. Are we doing the right thing? That's someone's daughter. 38 families are going through what she's going through right now. Maybe the Council is right. Maybe paying this once would be worth it to avoid the bloodshed." Admiral Choi was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled up a classified file on his computer and turned the screen toward Daeun. 3 months ago, the Zenthari Republic paid a ransom for 12 hostages. The hostages were returned safely. 2 weeks later, 30 more Zenthari citizens were taken by a different pirate group. Last month they paid again. Yesterday another 60 Zenthari were kidnapped. Do you see the pattern? Daeun looked at the data and felt her stomach sink. Every species that had paid ransoms had been targeted again and again. The pirates had learned which governments would pay and exploited that weakness repeatedly. "How many have died?" she asked quietly. "Hundreds," Choi replied, "because the cycle never ends once you start feeding it." The Zenthari wanted to save 12 lives. Now hundreds are dead or enslaved, and the kidnappings continue every week. He closed the file and looked at his second-in-command. "We're not being cruel, Daeun. We're being responsible. We're thinking about the millions of humans who will travel through space in the coming decades. We're protecting them by making sure that taking a human hostage is the last mistake any criminal ever makes." Daeun nodded slowly, her doubts not completely erased, but at least understood. "What are Jiho's chances?" 34% for complete success, 70% for partial success with some casualties, 12% for total mission failure. Those aren't good odds. They're the only odds we have, Choi said. And they're better than the guaranteed outcome of teaching the galaxy that we'll pay ransoms. Get me updates every hour. I want to know the moment Ghost Protocol launches. In a secret facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, Captain Jiho Ryu stood before 8 of the most elite soldiers humanity had ever produced. These were the operators of Ghost Protocol Squadron, trained in zero-signature combat and equipped with technology that most of the galaxy didn't know existed. They had been preparing for missions like this since the squadron's creation 5 years ago. The mission is simple, Jiho said, pulling up a holographic display of the Horizon's Promise and the surrounding Krillian fleet. We insert silently, neutralize all hostiles, extract all friendlies, and leave nothing behind but wreckage. We have 36 hours to reach the target location and execute the operation before the first execution deadline. One of his operators, Seojin Park, raised a hand. Rules of engagement, sir? Zero tolerance, Jiho replied. Any Krillian with a weapon is a target. Any Krillian without a weapon is still probably a target. We're not there to arrest anyone or take prisoners. We're there to send a message that will echo across every pirate haven in the galaxy. Another operator, Yuna Choi, studied the fleet composition. 8 capital ships and 23 raiders. That's a lot of firepower, sir. Even with our stealth tech, if they detect us before we reach the hostages. Then we adapt and overcome, Jiho said. Our people don't quit. We don't retreat. We don't negotiate. We complete the mission or we die trying. Is everyone clear? 8 voices answered in perfect unison. Clear, sir. Good, we launch in 1 hour. Check your equipment. Review the mission parameters one more time and make peace with whatever gods you believe in. This is going to be bloody. The countdown had begun. In the cargo bay of the Horizon's Promise, Minho noticed the lights flicker for just a fraction of a second. It was so brief that most people missed it, but he saw it, and he saw Hyun across the bay give the smallest nod. The engineer had found something, some weakness in the ship's power grid. They might have a chance after all. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity really meant when they said they didn't negotiate with terrorists. Galactic warning: humans don't bargain with terrorists. The stars looked peaceful through the viewport of the Horizon's Promise. Captain Minho Kang stood on the bridge, watching the swirling colors of the Velar Nebula paint the darkness with shades of purple and blue. His ship was 3 days into a routine diplomatic mission, carrying Ambassador Tae-Woo Han to peace negotiations with the Thalaxian Empire. Everything had gone smoothly so far. Captain, I'm detecting something unusual, Lieutenant Jisoo Park called out from her tactical station. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic display, pulling up sensor data. There are objects ahead. They're not showing up as ships or debris. Minho walked over to her station and studied the readings. Before he could respond, the ship lurched violently to one side. Alarms blared throughout the bridge. Engineer Hyun Kim shouted from the engine control panel that they had lost main power to the thrusters. We're caught in something, Hyun said, his voice tense. It's like a gravitational net. I can't break us free. The bridge lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency red lighting. Minho grabbed the command chair to steady himself as the ship shook again. Through the viewport, he could now see them clearly. Dozens of small spacecraft were surrounding the Horizon's Promise, and they didn't look friendly. Their hulls were covered in mismatched armor plates and weapons that had clearly been stolen from various species across the galaxy. Pirates, Jisoo whispered, her hand moving instinctively to her sidearm. The communication system crackled to life without anyone activating it. A rough, growling voice filled the bridge. Human vessel, you are now property of the Krillian raiders. Surrender immediately or we will tear your ship apart and take what we want from the wreckage. Minho's jaw tightened. He had heard of the Krillians. Every spacefarer had. They were the most feared pirate confederation in known space, responsible for hundreds of attacks over the past decade. They targeted diplomatic vessels and merchant ships, taking hostages and demanding enormous ransoms. And according to reports, most governments paid those ransoms rather than risk their citizens' lives. All crew. This is the captain, Minho spoke into the shipwide intercom, keeping his voice calm and steady. We are being boarded. Follow hostage protocols. Stay calm, stay together, and trust that Earth will not abandon us. Within minutes, the Krillian raiders cut through the airlock doors. They flooded into the ship like a swarm of insects, their bodies covered in environmental suits that hissed and clicked as they moved. They were efficient and brutal, rounding up the crew at gunpoint and herding them into the cargo bay. Minho counted 38 crew members and passengers total, including Ambassador Taewoo Han and Medical Officer Soo-min Lee. The raiders separated Minho and his senior officers from the rest of the crew. They were brought before their leader, a massive creature who stood over 7 feet tall. His face was hidden behind a scarred helmet, but his eyes gleamed with cruel intelligence. "I am Warlord Vexthor," the creature announced. "You have the honor of being my most valuable catch this year. A human diplomat, a military captain, and an entire crew of Earth's finest. Your government will pay handsomely for your return." Minho said nothing. He kept his expression neutral, even as one of the raiders shoved him to his knees. Vexthor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Silent now? You will scream soon enough. But first, let me show your people what happens when they delay payment." The warlord activated a holoprojector, and suddenly the cargo bay was filled with cameras and broadcasting equipment. The pirates were going to send a message to Earth, to the entire galaxy. Vexthor stood in front of the equipment and began speaking. "People of Earth and members of the Galactic Council, I hold 38 human lives in my hands. Their safe return will cost you 10,000 units of refined antimatter fuel and complete specifications for your plasma weapon systems. You have 48 hours to deliver these items to the coordinates I will provide. For every hour you delay after that deadline, I will execute one hostage. The choice is yours." The broadcast ended. The raiders dragged the crew back to the cargo bay and sealed them inside. Minho immediately gathered his officers around him. "Listen carefully," he whispered. "Earth has a policy. They don't negotiate with terrorists, ever." Jisoo's eyes widened. "But it means we need to be ready to save ourselves if we can," Minho continued. "Hyun, I need you to map the ship's current power signatures. Find any weakness in their control of our systems. Jisoo, memorize every guard rotation and weapon placement. Soo-min, keep everyone calm and healthy. If an opportunity comes, we need to be ready to take it." The hours crawled by slowly. The crew huddled together in the cold cargo bay, sharing body heat and quiet words of encouragement. Ambassador Taewoo Han sat with them, his diplomatic composure never cracking despite the fear that everyone felt. Meanwhile, light years away on Earth, Admiral Young-Soo Choi received the Krillian broadcast in his office at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. He watched it once, his face expressionless, then played it again. Before he could call his staff, his communication console lit up with an incoming transmission from the Galactic Council. The holographic image of a tall, thin alien appeared before him. "Admiral Choi, we have seen the demands. The Council urges Earth to comply quickly. The Krillians have taken hostages from 16 different species over the past decade. Those who paid the ransom saw their people returned safely. Those who refused," the alien paused. "There were no survivors." Admiral Choi stood up from his desk and looked directly at the hologram. "Tell the Council that Earth's position is clear and unchanging. We do not negotiate with terrorists. Not now, not ever." The alien's face showed shock. "You would condemn your own people to death for a principle. I will not condemn thousands of future victims by teaching pirates that human lives can be bought and sold," Choi replied coldly. "This conversation is over." He ended the transmission and immediately activated his command console. "Get me Captain Jiho Ryu and the Ghost Protocol Squadron. Authorization code Alpha 99. We have 36 hours to plan and execute a rescue operation." His second-in-command, Commander Daeun Song, entered the office moments later. "Sir, the political ministers are demanding an emergency meeting. The hostages' families are flooding every communication channel. The media is calling for immediate payment of the ransom." Admiral Choi looked out the window at the sprawling city below. Somewhere down there, families were crying, praying for their loved ones to come home. He felt the weight of every single life in his hands. "Tell them all the same thing," he said quietly. "Earth does not bargain with evil. We end it." The clock was ticking. The galaxy was watching, and humanity was about to teach everyone a lesson they would never forget. Galactic warning: humans don't bargain with terrorists. 3 months had passed since the destruction of the Krillian fleet. The Outer Rim territories had become quieter than anyone could remember. Pirate attacks across all species had dropped by 40%, the lowest rate in 15 years. The criminals were learning to be more careful about their targets, and humanity had become the species they avoided most carefully. Lieutenant Jisoo Park stood in front of a classroom filled with officers from various Earth Defense Force ships. She had been promoted to commander and assigned to the training division, teaching other crews how to handle hostage situations. On the screen behind her was a tactical map of the Horizon's Promise incident. The key to survival in captivity is maintaining discipline and awareness, she explained to the attentive audience. Captain Kang never stopped being a captain, even with his hands bound. He observed, he planned, and he kept his crew ready for any opportunity. That's what saved us as much as Ghost Protocol's intervention. A young officer raised his hand. Commander, what was it like knowing that Earth wasn't going to pay the ransom? Weren't you afraid they had just condemned you to death? Jisoo considered the question carefully. Afraid? Yes, but also confident. Because I knew that if Earth had paid, we might be rescued that one time, but hundreds of other crews would be taken in the future. Admiral Choi made the hard choice to save lives in the long term, even if it risked ours in the short term. That takes courage. In another part of the headquarters, engineer Hyun Kim was consulting with ship designers on new security systems. His experience being captured had given him unique insights into vulnerabilities that most engineers never considered. The newest generation of Earth vessels would have backup power systems that couldn't be locked out by pirates, internal sensors that could detect unauthorized boarding, and dozens of other improvements. The Krillians took control of our ship too easily, Hyun explained to the design team. We need redundant systems that can't all be disabled at once, and we need ways for the crew to fight back even if the main systems are compromised. Medical Officer Suman Lee had written a comprehensive manual on treating crews under extreme stress. It was being distributed throughout the Defense Force and had even been requested by several other species who were impressed by how Earth's personnel had maintained composure during captivity. She now taught courses on psychological resilience to medical officers across the fleet. Captain Minho Kang had received a promotion and command of a new ship, the Unyielding. It was an appropriate name. The vessel was a rapid response frigate designed to reach crisis situations faster than any other ship in the fleet. As he sat in the captain's chair on the bridge, running final system checks before their first mission, he reflected on how much had changed in such a short time. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Defense Command, his communication officer reported. Admiral Choi wants to speak with you directly. Minho's screen activated to show the Admiral's face. Captain Kang, congratulations on your new command. I have a mission for you. Ready to receive orders, sir. The Zenthari Republic has reached out to us quietly. They want to learn about our tactical doctrine and hostage rescue capabilities. They've had another wave of kidnappings, and their government is considering changing their policy on ransom payments. I want you to meet with their military leadership and share what you learned from your experience. Minho was surprised. Sir, 3 months ago the Zenthari were condemning our actions in the Council. Now they want our help. Results speak louder than protests, Captain. They've watched pirate attacks on human vessels drop to almost nothing, while their own people continue to be taken. Pride is giving way to practicality. Go teach them what they need to know. Understood, sir. The Unyielding will depart within the hour. But not all reactions to Earth's policy were positive. Nari Han, the ambassador's daughter who had screamed at Admiral Choi months ago, had become the public face of a movement called Redemption Over Retribution. She gave speeches arguing that Earth's aggressive approach was morally wrong, even if it was effective. She believed that civilization required mercy and negotiation, not violence and ultimatums. Her movement had gained followers, particularly among younger people who hadn't lived through the decades of terrorism that had plagued humanity on Earth. They saw the destruction of the Krillian fleet as excessive and brutal. They questioned whether saving lives justified killing so many, even if those killed were criminals. Commander Daeun Song found herself confronting these arguments when her own nephew joined the movement. At a family dinner, the young man challenged her directly. Aunt Daeun, how can you defend what happened? Thousands died. Surely there was another way. Daeun set down her fork and looked at her nephew. Before Earth adopted the no-negotiation policy, we had a terrorist organization called the Red Hand Collective. They kidnapped civilians and demanded ransoms from families and corporations. For 10 years, people paid. The kidnappings increased every year. Then the government changed the policy. No more ransoms. No more negotiations. Within 2 years, the Red Hand Collective was destroyed. The kidnappings stopped completely. How many lives do you think that saved? But the people who were held hostage during those 2 years? 43 people died, Daeun said quietly. It was tragic and terrible. But in the 8 years before the policy change, The Red Hand killed or permanently held over 300 hostages whose families couldn't pay ransoms, and the number was growing every year. Sometimes the moral choice is also the hard choice. Her nephew wasn't convinced, but at least he listened. Daeun knew that this debate would continue for years. Humanity had always argued about the balance between security and mercy, between pragmatism and idealism. It was one of their strengths, this constant questioning and reevaluation. But it also meant that every decision was second-guessed and every policy was challenged. Meanwhile, in the dark corners of the galaxy, the criminal underworld was adapting. A meeting took place on a remote station that served as neutral ground for various pirate organizations. Representatives from a dozen different groups gathered to discuss the new reality that humanity had created. A scarred alien who commanded the Void Serpents spoke first. "We all saw what happened to the Krillians. The humans don't bluff, they don't negotiate, they just kill you and everyone you know, so we need to be smarter about this." "Smarter how?" asked another pirate leader. "We can't just ignore an entire species. Humans travel everywhere now. We don't ignore them. We avoid them unless we have overwhelming force. And if we do take humans, we kill them immediately and dump the bodies where they won't be found. No broadcast, no ransom demands, no evidence. Make it look like accidents or equipment failures." A third voice objected. "That doesn't help us. We make money from ransoms, not from corpses. Then we focus on species that still pay," the Void Serpent commander said. "The Palaxians, the Zenthari, before they started copying human tactics. The smaller independent systems. Let the humans have their reputation. We'll find profit elsewhere." But this strategy was also noticed by Earth's intelligence services. Admiral Choi read the reports with grim satisfaction. "They're learning to avoid us, good. That's exactly what we wanted." "But sir," one of his intelligence officers pointed out, "they're just shifting to softer targets. We've made ourselves safe, but other species are paying the price." "For now," Choi agreed. "But watch what happens over the next year. The species that are being targeted will either adopt similar policies, or they'll pressure their governments to change. The Zenthari are already reaching out to us for training. The Thalaxians are implementing their own no-negotiation policy. Eventually, the criminals will run out of profitable targets altogether." Commander Daeun entered the office with more news. "Sir, the Palaxian Cooperative has announced they're severing diplomatic relations with Earth. They're calling us warmongers and refusing all military cooperation." Choi shrugged. "Did you expect anything else? They've invested decades in their pacifist philosophy. Admitting that violence is sometimes necessary would undermine everything they believe. Let them break relations. They'll be back in a year when they realize we were right. And if they don't come back, then they'll learn the hard way and other species will learn from their example. Either way, the lesson gets taught." Across human-controlled space, regular citizens were experiencing the benefits of the policy without thinking much about it. Merchant vessels traveled with less fear. Diplomatic missions proceeded without incident. Tourist ships carried families to exotic worlds without armed escorts. The absence of piracy became the new normal, and people began to forget how dangerous space travel had been just a few years earlier. But the military never forgot. Every officer knew that maintaining this safety required constant vigilance and the willingness to respond with overwhelming force when necessary. The Ghost Protocol Squadron remained on constant standby, ready to deploy at a moment's notice to rescue any human taken hostage anywhere in known space. Captain Jiho Ryu, the man who had led the rescue of the Horizon's Promise, now commanded an expanded squadron. His success had led to the creation of 4 additional Ghost Protocol units, each trained to the same Bruta,